Hello and welcome to this webinar on the secret strategies that you can help to employ to finding Mr. Right. And I can assume that you are here because you're struggling in some shape or form with finding the right partner, maybe going on a lot of dates or maybe no dates at all to try and figure out who you want to be with. But for some reason, it's just not happening. Well, my name's Ellie McGraw, and I'm a love coach. And as someone who used to say that, I'll end up living alone, I'll have about 20 dogs, and maybe no one will find me after 2 weeks because I'd be so lonely. And part of me was like, no, there has to be something more. There has to be something that more to this life, because my connections to people were pretty superficial. I would go through relationships quite quickly, both romantic and friendships, because I didn't have that full capacity of my love available to me. And so I set out on a journey to really figure out, who was I and what was stopping me from finding love. And although it didn't kind of come up as that in the initial stages, that's what it turned out to be. Because for me, finding these deep, loving connections with people is one of the most fundamental parts of our existence. It's why we're here. And sometimes people struggle with that because our heart's been through a little bit of a battle and it's been cut off from the world. And I feel it's my purpose in life to help people unlock that love, unlock their hearts so that they can fully love and embrace everything that comes with that, whether it's good or, whether it's a little bit hurtful. Because the heart's a muscle. It needs to be stretched in order to grow. So I became an NLP trainer, and NLP, if you haven't heard of it before, it is called for neuro-linguistic programming. And basically what that is that it's the language of the mind that helps us understand the programs, the patterns, and the behaviors that we run in our everyday life. And it provides a systematic approach to be able to change the things that don't work for us and enhance the things that do. Although our brain is so complex, throughout the study of NLP, we've found ways to be able to basically hijack it and start to create different patterns. Because once you understand how something works, you can begin to flex it a little bit, create change, can't you? And you know what it's like whenever you've understood how something works, but then you find ways to make it even better, even more flexible. And you can do that with love too, can't you? I also study Reiki. So Reiki for me was really about trying to understand the power of healing. And I felt like I needed to heal myself a little bit. And that's one of the things that comes out a lot when I'm coaching clients, is that there has to be a lot of healing and a lot of forgiveness. And doing that on a vibrational and an energetic way creates so much power. And understanding where those blockages happen is really fundamental for helping people change it, just like you. And you want to change it, don't you? I've recently qualified as a language and behavioral profile consultant. That sounds very fancy, doesn't it? But basically what it is that we have certain programs that we run dependent on the situation. And sometimes we, might act in a particular way in one situation, but act in a completely different way in another. But again, one of these things, whenever we understand what that pattern is, we've got an opportunity to either enhance it or to change it and move it away. And so I apply the lab profiling in love. Like, could you imagine what it would be like to understand what program you automatically kick into when you start to enter into a love relationship? How powerful could that be for you to go, oh, I actually know what I'm doing. And if that program's working for you, brilliant, we can make it even better. But if it's not, it gives us a really strong point to start to change it. And we can do that. Change it. I also love essential oils, and it's been one of the things that's helped me so much on my journey. Essential oils, when they come from a reputable source, they are really high quality. They don't have a lot of fillers and things in them that makes them not so pure, because we are all vibrating. Everything in this universe vibrates. And some of us vibrate at a lower level. And what the essential oils do is they really help to bring up that vibration and allow us to see where we might be getting some of these patterns and some of the stuckness, if you like. And they're very, very beautiful, and they smell amazing. And they're very good for things around the house as well. Just to let you know, like my longest relationship up until the age of both 33, I was 9 months. And I used to be quite embarrassed by that number. People are like, I've been in a relationship for 9 years and 10 years. And I was like, oh my God, my longest one's been 9 months. What's wrong with me? Like, why can't I figure out and what is this? And so what I've come to learn is that it's actually a pretty good thing. It meant I wasn't wasting time on relationships that I knew just weren't going to work. And it was one of the indicators that made me go, oh, gee, what's wrong with me? Why is this? Why can I never get past that point? Why am I purposely picking people that I know I don't want to be with, but on some level just hoping that it'll be good enough and that they'll stick around? And I wonder if you've ever felt that. Have you? Where it's like deep down that it's not right, but you're just not really sure where you need to go and what you need to do. And probably one of the turning points and one of the funniest things that ever happened to me was I had just been at a concert with another guy who I had been seeing, but I really didn't have that attraction to him. And I ended up bumping in and meeting some friends on the ferry on the way home, and I lived in Manly at the time. And I just remember waking up the next morning and having this vision of me and my friend reenacting the Manly ferry, the Titanic scene from the Manly ferry. And I was like, oh, okay. Granted, there had been a lot of sparkling wine involved, but it was like, what are you doing? This sort of behavior is not acceptable. It didn't make me feel good. I knew that I had to change it. Something that just wasn't quite right. Although it's a really funny story, but it was that point where I wasn't really respecting myself and respecting who I was meant to be. And it made me sort of face up to it and focus on, what do I need to do? What do I need to change? So what would be your love story? I'm so interested. Imagine being able to love with all your heart and not having any of that fear that kind of holds us back. I watched a beautiful movie the other night, and she'd been told by a fortune teller that the guy that she was with was going to die. And even though she knew that he wasn't going to be around for a very long time, she took that relationship and she went for it. She took everything that she could out of it, and she spent in that time so that she could fully love with all of her heart. And now she had a choice. She could have took that and went really fearful and stepped away from that love. But she didn't. She grabbed it with everything she had. And you imagine picturing your dreams come true. A lot of my clients who I work with, they really struggle with grabbing that image of, what would it look like if it was to happen? And sometimes their heart is so locked away that they can't even picture that. The fear is so big, they just can't even allow themselves to actually feel and imagine and see what it would be like if they allowed love into their heart openly and easily. And I love this quote by Victor Hugo: the greatest happiness of life is the conviction that we are loved. Loved for ourselves, or rather loved in spite of ourselves. And often we have all these amazing people who want to love us, but we do everything we can to push them away because we've locked our heart up to keep it safe. But when we lock our heart up to keep it safe, we don't have anything else to give. And you do want to love, don't you? Love easily and effortlessly, without fear, knowing that everything's going to be just brilliant. So why do we think it's so hard? Like, what actually happens? Well, it actually starts when we are little. So there's a study by a chap called Macy, and he basically said that we have several stages of development, but most of our personality and our patterns and our values and our beliefs are created between the ages of 0 and 7. Picture that. Between 0 and 7. Do you have like the resources that you need to have to handle things that come up in those years? Maybe there's things like bullying. Maybe there's someone was mean to you. Maybe there's someone who dies. Maybe there's just something that happens that we don't necessarily have the ability to cope with. And when we don't have the ability to cope with it, our mind doesn't know what to do with that emotion. And so it just puts it in a place and kind of keeps it there. And then it starts looking for the things that kind of validate it. But then when things start to get too hard, we sometimes can disconnect our heart because it's so fragile in some cases. And it just wants to be loved. But when it's getting lots of tests and things, particularly when we're little and we don't know how to protect it in a way that's going to make it grow strong. And, love is one of those key happiness points in our lives. It's part of that golden triangle. But I think it's really important to understand that love is probably the one that underpins the other two. If we don't have love, how can we have passion to follow our purpose? How can we make our why as big as it can? Because if our why isn't big enough, why are we going to get out of bed when things are really hard? Because we want when we're tapped in, we've got so much purpose and passion and love for who we are. It doesn't matter how hard it is. We will do it. We will get up because we know it's easy and we know we're on the right path. And financial security comes along with that because when we follow our dreams, the universe takes care of us. And we can, can't we? Trust that everything's going to be okay. But we just need to unlock, open the key, open the door. And sometimes it creates isolation. When we lock our hearts away, we don't give people the opportunity to really see us and hear what we have to say because we don't really tell exactly what's going on for us because we'll be afraid that we're going to get judged. And we've got compare-itis. Have you ever had that? I get that sometimes, where I'm constantly comparing myself to everyone else and wondering, why don't I have that? I really want that, but I just can't have it. And probably compare-itis was one of the things that set me on the path that I'm on because I was like, well, I deserve to have that. Why can't I have it? What am I doing that's stopping me from having this? And then when we're in these spaces of compare-itis and isolation, we're actually looking for evidence to tell us that what we're doing and what we're receiving validates who we are and what we believe about ourselves. And that's crazy, isn't it? That we're always looking for things that validate the bad things about us. Those continuously going out on bad dates, relationships that never seem to work out for whatever reason. And, the big one for me as well is that we don't always take responsibility. It's our responsibility for how our lives go. And once we hand responsibility over to the continuous bad dates, or then there's not any good guys available anymore, or it just seems to happen to me all the time. Once we let that responsibility go and don't take responsibility for it, our lives are at the mercy of everything and everyone around us. And that's why it can be really hard. Imagine trying to walk a dog but not holding the lead and taking responsibility for the dog. What's going to happen? Could run away, could get knocked down. Sometimes it could stay beside you, but it depends on how much training you've done. So let's get into the secrets. I promised you some secrets and some strategies that you can use to help you find Mr. Right. So I hope that you're ready. Are you ready? Because this is where you get the chance to take responsibility for yourself and responsibility for your love and taking those first steps to really opening your heart again, increasing your capacity for love. So secret number 1 is I want you to get a mirror and hold it up to your love life. Hold it up to those relationships that you've had. Find out what patterns keep repeating themselves. What do you continually hear from the people that you go out with? What can you actually start to look at? What is the patterns? And you can't you notice those patterns? And I don't know if you know, once you understand those patterns, what can that mean for you? And I wonder if you've ever really thought about, what's the same? From Joe Blogs to, Danny Smith. What was the same about that relationship? Because you're the same, aren't you? So if you can figure out what actually was happening, it will let you know how you're actually acting, the patterns that you have. And then it's obvious to the fact as to why these keep happening. So I went, just before I met my beautiful, lovely partner, I was at a meditation retreat. And I was in a semi-relationship with this guy. He wasn't really committing to me, but I was just hoping for all my might that he might just change his mind and want to be with me all out, rather than just kind of going for the odd dinner and rumpy pumpy. But I was like, okay. And he was like, and there was a few other ones that didn't quite work out, and I was like, okay. And the monk was like talking, so I thought this was Vipassana meditation. And we were in this beautiful room. It was a winter's day, but the sun was coming down, and it was so lovely and warm and comforting. And he started talking about attachment. And he asked, attachment, what are you attached to? He says, because everything in this world is not permanent. I can give you this bowl as a present, but I never want to say to you that that bowl can't be yours forever, because that bowl might fall and might smash. Or you might want to give it to someone else, or someone else might want it. But when we really start to understand that nothing's permanent, and we need to have that flexibility to not have the attachment. Because when we get attached to something, we tend to grab on so tight that we never want to let it go, and we spend all this energy trying to hold it, and it always sort of drift away. And so that got me thinking and wondering, what is it that I'm hanging on to with these relationships? What is the attachment that I have? And as I was sitting there focusing on my breath, I was like, oh my God, I have it. I was attached to the fact that they were all emotionally unavailable. I was like, each one of them was unavailable to me emotionally. Like, wow. And I created my list of my perfect guy, and I went back to the list. I was like, is that on my list? Guess what? It wasn't. So immediately that went on the list. So go back through your last 3 encounters, the last 3 people that you've had relationships with, and figure out what the pattern is. What were you attached to? Why does it keep happening? It's so important that we start to recognize these patterns that happen in our lives. What do you need to learn? Because we need to learn, and we get these things over and over again because the universe tells us that we've got something we need to learn. We keep acting in a way that doesn't serve us very much. So what did you need to learn from each of those relationships? Secret number 2, find your blocks. Now this is a multi-level thing. Like really find your blocks. Like what's kind of stopping you? So where does your energy feel stuck? Yeah, is it that it is stuck in your heart and you don't really want to go out there? Is it that you feel drained? Is it that it feels like Groundhog Day? Just look at where your energy is, where your blockages are. And have a look at the people around you. That's so important. Sometimes we end up getting into these situations and having these people around us that aren't really good for us. And they feed sometimes on our misery. And it's okay for them to be friends with us whenever we're not happy and when we're in this circle of not enjoying parts of our lives. And they're very good at keeping you there. So look around you. Are those people in your life that want to support you, keep you up, want to help you, and they'll celebrate with you when you have something to celebrate? And or you keep doing the stuff the same way. You know, if you, what's that Einstein quote? If you keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, it's the definition of insanity. So think about when you're going into those dates, what's your normal sabotage? What are you doing to kind of stop things progressing? Figure it out. And do you maybe need to shift something in your life? I got a huge shift whenever I moved house. And that's not to be confused with doing a geographical. Have you heard of that? Doing a geographical? Where people who have these issues and they think by moving it's going to stop them. But, the one thing when you do a geographical that you don't change is yourself. So if you don't move those blockages, but sometimes a move can really help shift those things around. And then secret number 3 is have a look at your behavior. So are you doing the same things and expecting a different outcome? Think about the websites that you're going on. Think about the patterns that you're running in your head. So what are the thoughts that you're doing? Do you go out and get really drunk on dates? Or do you go out and try and get a bit too cozy? Think about what you do. And also thinking about, like I said before, about my list. I had a list of, what my ideal partner would look like. Actually, it was a bit of a spider diagram. And I had the things that were really important to me. And I lived with this guy, and he, a very smart guy, and we were very, very good friends. And he, I was a bit down about being lonely and not really finding someone. What is that? And he's like, Els, have a think about it. What's your ideal partner? And I listed off, tall, dark, and handsome, funny, successful, all this kind of thing. I was like, okay. And he's like, okay, so think about you. Would you be the person in your current state that person would be attracted to? And I just thought to myself, well, yes, of course he would. All indignant and a bit low. But I let that sit for a little while, and it sort of bubbled around in my head and my subconscious. And I was like, actually, because at that point I was going out partying all the time and, having a few too many glasses of sparkling wine and, just kind of very kind of free-spirited, but really kind of, just trying to numb the pain. To numb the fact that I wasn't really living up to my expectations, but I didn't know how to really to live up to those. So thinking about, are you what they want? And again, that got me to start being a bit what's that word? Reflective. Really trying to be like, okay, well, what am I doing? How are my behaviors? Is that what's going to attract? Because when we talk about vibrations again, it's like attracts like. So if you're not vibrating at a level where your ideal partner is going to want to come and be with you, then you're never going to find them. And we have to treat our lives as mirrors. So whatever we're seeing at the outside is actually what's happening for us on the inside. And that can be a little bit confronting to hear on the first time. But you know what? There's so much liberation, because that then gives you the opportunity to take responsibility. And again, then you can start to take action. When you know these things, and there's an assumption in NLP, when you know better, you can do better. Because once you know something, you can't unknow something. And now you've got more choices available to you. So what actions are you going to take that are going to be different? How can you be more like what your ideal partner might be looking for? So as a special offer to you, I want to help you take action. Like, what would it mean for you to be able to find love? You know, would it be worth spending a few hours every week really getting to understand you and the blockages that you have, and start to reprogram your mind in a way that will allow love? That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Just for a few hours a week, really starting to transform your mind and the inner workings so that you can receive love and give love without fear. So it's the special offer to you. I've got an 8-week program coming up. And in that 8-week program, we're going to have a look at a lot of things. So we're going to have a look at your before and after lab profile. So I'll look at and ascertain what your language and behavior profile is for love. And we'll do one at the beginning and we'll do one at the end, and we'll figure out how they changed based on the learnings that you've got. We'll also have weekly coaching Q&A sessions, and they'll be live, as well as having a weekly mindset reset audio. So we'll actually start to get in there and work at an unconscious level to help you become aware and change those patterns. And each week in the program has a different theme, and in those themes, the audio will match that. There'll also be a private Facebook group where you can get a lot more support, access to me throughout the week, and also the other people who are going through the same as you, who want to unlock their hearts and be able to embrace love for everything that it's worth. You'll also get a Design Your Life workbook, which will take you through and dig really deep into those things that you truly desire, so that you can really build that beautiful life that you've been picturing and wanting. And you'll also get a copy of Why Are You Still Single, which is another really awesome workbook that can help you with different strategies, different exercises. It's going to challenge you in different ways so that you can really start to uncover these patterns and start to just get them out of there. You've had them for so long. Are you ready to set them down? Are you ready to embrace who you actually are meant to be? I wonder, when you really embrace who you're meant to be, unlock your heart. How important is that? And as a special offer, you're going to be able to join my 8-week program for just $397. It's usually $447. That's Australian. That's so small in comparison to the value that you'll get and the ability to be able to love and find that relationship, to have that family that you've always wanted. But if you have any questions, please let me know. But 100% sign up for this. I'll post the link and you can sign up. But it's been lovely spending the last sort of 30 minutes with you. I hope you've enjoyed everything that we've gone through. Any questions, give me a shout.